So jealousy is cruel as the grave, as they say. And this really is the heart and soul of Satan. He's indeed a jealous God. And jealousy is cruel as the grave. And so he will downgrade and trash anyone who doesn't go along with his program. And ultimately, in worshipping him, he doesn't want you to worship his adversary being Jesus. He would be jealous of that. So he would do anything he can to utterly destroy anyone who doesn't go along with the program. And no doubt a measure of the devil's jealousy was in even executing Jesus. And this is what they do. But King David here, writing these psalms as from a heart cry to God, and here we all are living in an all-sight seeing eye world. But not to forget, though this is very discouraging to know we're now living in an all-seeing eye world. This symbol in the capstone, the eye of Lucifer, points to they aspiring to be God, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. The eyes of the Lord actually run to and fro in the whole earth. And God's eyes are indeed everywhere. So King David being aware of this, and so he writes Psalm 139. And he's saying, "Oh Lord, thou hast searched me and known me." God knows everything about us, in other words. "Thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my down sitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thoughts afar off." Right, God knows all of our thoughts. "Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways." God knows all of our ways. He knows all of our thoughts. He knows everything about us. "For there is not a word in my tongue." Right, so he knows everything we're going to say. "For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it all together." God knows everything we're going to say. As he knows it all together. He knows exactly what you're going to say next. "Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thine hand upon me." So God knows everything about you. He knows your thoughts. He knows what you're going to say. He knows what you are going to do. He knows where you are going. He knows where you're coming from. Every tiny detail of your life, God knows. And he goes on further on in this psalm, and he's talking about the day that he was created in the womb. Now, it's interesting, in the book of John, it talks, it says, "But as many as received him," right, Jesus, it's talking about. First, he came unto his own, right? He came to his own people, but his own people received him not. He came unto his own. Obviously his own was he was born amongst the children of Israel. So he came unto his own, but his own received him not. But as many as received him, right, and when he was here on earth, people did receive him. His own people rejected him, as we all know, eventually crucified him because of envy, because of jealousy. But as many as received him, even so, as many as received him, a lot of these people not necessarily children of Israel, but as many as received him, those that were open to what Jesus had to say, that received him, that were open arms to him, that were willing to give him an ear, right? But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. So back then, those that were receiving Jesus were given a measure of God's Spirit, in that they then would have sensed that they were onto something spiritually in listening to the words of Jesus, in receiving Jesus, in talking to Jesus. Indeed, having communications and fellowship with Jesus, not to forget the fellowship. Jesus giving them his time, his thoughts, his love, his care, his touch, his words, everything was open from Jesus to them. And he taking them into their hearts of heart, his heart of hearts, in every conversation and everything he did. And so they sensed this love in Jesus, touching them deep down in their hearts. And therefore, but as many as received him, to them gave he power. The spiritual power as coming from Jesus, Jesus operating under the power of the Holy Ghost, and bringing God, bringing his Father to the world, and his loving touch coming from his intimate self, touching them deep in their hearts, deep in their spirits, and speaking to their every fear and thought, and indeed telling people they were not pieces of trash in his eyes, in his thoughts. So touching people's hearts and spirits, but as many as received him, to them gave he power, spiritual love and power, to become the sons of God, which were born not of the will of the flesh, right? The will of the flesh, in other words, nature. It's nature that people have sex and children are born willy-nilly. So, but as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, which were born not of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, where we now have birth control, and people either have sex or abstain from sex, or they use the pill, or the coil, etc., in order to have children or not. You might be on the pill, and you come off the pill and you have children, and so on. But it isn't that brought you into the well-planned birth control as we now have, which were born not of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, in other words, planned births, nor not of blood, in that, you're born to be British, Irish, French, German or Italian or so on. It wasn't that brought you into the world. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, which were not born according to the will of the flesh, nor the will of man, nor of blood, but of God. It was God who decided the day you were born. It was God who decided the day that Jesus was going to come into this world. And then it goes on to say, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. So just like Jesus' birth was planned, and it's all written in the scriptures exactly what Jesus' life would turn out to be. This is all written down. And so it did. And so Jesus, it says, was slain even from the foundation of this world. So you have, right, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, right, and everything else in this world. But at the same time, in the back of God's mind, in his thoughts, he knew, well, the Word, it says, was with God, and the Word was God, right? And everything was made by him, and nothing was made that was made without Jesus. So it's God and Jesus that created this world. Now, it's interesting to know that in the back of God's mind, in the back of even Jesus' mind, they knew that they were creating a world that Jesus would eventually come to and die in, this world. So Jesus was slain from the foundation of the world. So could you picture God creating this world? Jesus, in the beginning was the Word, Jesus, right? And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All the things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So here's God, here's Jesus. They're creating a world. In the back of their minds, they know that Jesus is going to eventually come into this world. So he's the Lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world. So God creates a world that he knows his only begotten son that comes into this world